Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Handicap Hustle with your host, Jim Breslow, and our special guest every week, Richard Frazier of FrazeWins.com. And he has once again earned that name. I've yet to have to say you need to change your website to Fraze Loses. Fraze Wins is the operative term because for the third straight week, Fraze has won with his 3 picks, this time going 3-0. So he went 2-1 first weekend, 2-1 second weekend, 3-0 the third weekend. He's now at a 7-2 clip, and you can get access to those picks, and we'll tell you how. But this is not a show, by the way, where we're getting paid to promote Richard Frazier or whatever. Just to explain to people who maybe are just starting to watch the show, you should watch the first 2 episodes if you might have missed them. But I think this is the first time that I'm aware of, and I've been a long time sports follower, sports bettor, etc., where we are tracking the season in real time of a big time, long time Las Vegas handicapper to see how he does. So the format of the show is we do these shows every Tuesday morning, and at that point we talk about what Rich's picks were over the weekend and how they did. So he has to sit here and explain how he made the picks, why he made the picks, and how they did, and that's win or lose. Richard is going to be here to explain. And so far, it's been 3 winning weekends, and you can confirm that these are the actual picks that he made because we provide them on Substack. You have to pay to get them, but we release what he released to everybody, to all of our subscribers. So just subscribe to Handicap Hustle. That's Handicap Hustle on Substack, and just become a subscriber. There's no charge for that, and you'll see what the picks were that were released. Or for a mere $79, you can get all his picks for a month, and that would be a wise investment considering the guy has gone 7-2 so far. He and I both coming off a draining Las Vegas weekend. Well, Rich lives in Las Vegas, so I guess you have that weekend all the time, but I'm still recovering from my weekend. But Rich, it was great to see you. We had a nice little dinner at the Fountain Blue on Saturday night at Komodo Restaurant, which I will give them a plug. Excellent food, and more importantly, excellent drinks, which is all Rich seemed to be interested in.
Yeah, Jim, you are the if anybody comes to Vegas, you're the guy I want to see. So, I mean, take that for what you want, but I did have
Well,
a wonderful time meeting you and your friends and your significant other, and it was a lovely, lovely evening. Although a little short by my standards, I wish it would have went longer, but
you're the one that bailed out, not me. We kept it going longer than I expected. I wasn't feeling great, but you know, with the oxygen that they pump into the casinos, that somehow energized me, and I managed to make it till about 3 a.m. actually that night, and then followed by a pool party the next day at the
well, that
Live
that was the
Beach Club.
thing. I knew that I was having respect for the fact that you were having a pool party the next day, which was going to start at 10 a.m., which is when the games start out here. So,
Well,
you know,
that's a good segue to, to talking about the games. Excuse me, I've had this crazy cough. I've had every version of COVID that exists out there, and I think I got another one of them. But yeah, so when you're in Vegas, you know, the clock kind of stands still or whatever. It doesn't mean quite as much as it means in the real world. So I would have had to gotten up very early to place my Rich Frazier bets. He's generous enough to provide them to me for free. Thank you, Richard. But I have to sit here today and again face the wall of shame because I didn't place a bet on any of your games this weekend. And last weekend I actually bet against one of your picks.
yeah,
So,
I'm well aware. I'm well aware.
Well, we're gonna talk about that game. That was the Atlanta Philadelphia game from the
And
prior
that's like a
weekend.
knife in the back to me, by the way.
Well, as you know, I'm a casual bettor anyway, and I really only like to, bet the games if I know I'm going to be watching them. And I knew the pool wasn't going to have any TVs anyway. And I figured there's no way that Rich can continue this hot winning streak. He's probably going to have a losing weekend anyway. So, better to lay off. And I missed 3-0. However, what I can tell you is I got my shit together by after the pool party, and we had one game left basically that I could actually enjoy and watch in Vegas. This is on Sunday night, of course, and it was the Chiefs Falcons game. So I decided to triple up on what I would normally bet because I realized, shit, I missed 3-0 Richard Frazier picks. I got to go out on my own and do it on my own. And so I tripled up and I bet the Chiefs, and I escaped by the hair of my chinny chin chin as they barely beat the Falcons on Sunday night. So it turned out all good. All good.
Well, you're living the right way, Jim. If you missed the 3-0 and won that Chiefs game, then you're doing something right.
I did it the hard way. So not only are you 3-0, but your Steelers are 3-0. So but before we kind of talk about some of the games from this past weekend, talk about your Steelers being 3-0.
And you know, I just being brutally honest here. I lost possession of my phone Sunday morning, which threw my mojo completely off, which just goes to prove that I don't have to sit and watch the games to have a 3-0 turnout. I left the house to create, any problems here, and stayed in a hotel for a couple days, and didn't even check the scores of the games till at the end of the night.
This is an oldie in Vegas story where the guy disappears for a couple days, loses his phone, reappears just in time for the taping of our show. Do we want to talk about on the air what the hell you were doing in a hotel room for 2 nights? You live in Vegas.
Yeah, I live in Vegas, but I my family is ultra conservative, and I mean, I think it might make for good TV that I plan to get up at 10 a.m., which I did. I keep my phone by my bed in case there's any last minute phone calls, somebody needs to talk to me in an emergency. And I got out of bed, no phone, come out to the living room, family sitting here, and I picked up my phone and I have the biometrics set on my phone. Can't get through my biometrics. It's telling me I need to plug in a new username, password. I'm like, by the chance, did anybody mess with my phone today? And my wife said, well, I wanted you to buy my Starbucks today. Okay. You have access to my wallet, take the card, the bank card. There's 10 credit cards you could have used, but no, you choose to try to bypass my biometrics and transfer money from my account to your account, which I didn't understand, to which I lost my shit and slammed my phone down, and the phone got broken.
All to buy a cup of coffee.
All to buy a cup of coffee. Does that make any sense?
So, well, we don't want to get into all the details of the weekend. So somehow that spiraled into what? You being pissed off at your wife, you having to go to a hotel room. You couldn't watch. Are you telling us that you didn't watch the game Sunday?
I did not. No.
Wow, that's funny. So at what point were you at least tracking the scores?
No, I mean, I have confidence in what I do to the point where I don't have to watch the games to make them win. I know what I'm doing. These 3 games slotted very nicely into my deviations. I wasn't worried about it at all. And when I did finally check scores in the evening, found out that I did go 3-0, and I'm like, perfect,
And what do you do at that moment when you find out you went 3-0 in particular? You do a shot. What do you do?
I pat myself on the back.
Nice. Where did you check it? Just like on online, like ESPN scores or something?
Well, what I did was I took my when I left the house, I did take my laptop with me. So it's my second best friend aside from my phone. And
Well,
I said, let me check the scores. Looked, I'm like, oh, Denver, good. Eagles, good. And you know, the game everybody was bitching about, of course, was the Panthers, and easy win. So
yeah. Well, I'd like to give you shit about being a schmuck about losing your phone and so on, but well, I guess it was your wife's fault anyway. But I lose my phone all the time. I'm usually leaving on top of a car, and at some point it goes off the car and gets shattered, and I go through about two phones a year. Anyway, let's go through the game. So first of all, I teed this up. Did you want to talk about boast about your Steelers at all before we got into your three picks?
well, that was, you know, a game. Obviously, I checked because I, you know, I have interest in the Steelers, and but I mean that was a typical Steeler game. I think the final was 2010
Yeah,
Steelers, and Chargers are not that great. Um, from what I seen, based on looking at the stats of the game, that once again it was you know, a strong defense by the Steelers, and Justin Fields being able to run on his feet to make things happen offensively, and not to mention Herbert got hurt during the game. I don't exactly know at what
uh,
stage that was of the game, but yeah, I mean, I'm very happy that my Steelers are 3-0. Whether or not that will get them into the playoffs, or whether they'll be a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs, yeah, I'm still uncertain about that.
yeah. Well, look, I'm looking at Justin Fields' numbers: 25 out of 32 for 245 yards. There's already a lot of people, a lot of rumblings about Chicago never should have given up on him and spent all that money on Caleb Williams, etc. But good news for your Steelers 3-0. So your picks, actually, I wish I wasn't in Vegas and I had looked at your picks in advance, because they actually lined up perfectly with a method that I have used before that I think I've told you about, and it kind of fits in with your methodology anyway. But teams that are coming off a bad loss facing a team that's coming off a surprising win has been a great trend for me in betting against the team that's coming off a big emotional win, and you're betting for the team that's coming off an embarrassing loss, because obvious psychology is you guys got your ass whooped. We're going to kick your ass in practice. We're going to be super focused, versus the team that's coming off a big win and they're high-fiving each other and they're getting a lot of attention and it's all going into their head and they have a nice sweet week of practice, and then they run into a team who's desperate for a victory. And all three of your picks actually lined up with that methodology. So let's start with the Broncos game. Right, the Broncos were, I don't know what loss they were coming off of, but I know the Buccaneers were coming off a huge win at Denver. I
At
mean, sorry,
Detroit,
at
at
Detroit.
Detroit, yeah.
And now they're coming home and everybody's riding high in the Buccaneers and they get swatted 26-7. By the way, before you comment on that game, the other thing I'll say, all three of your games you took the underdog and the team won outright. How about
Yeah.
that for phrase wins?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I prefer it to be. I don't, you know, I know Todd likes to talk about brass balls, you know, on these picks, but the fact is that I do expect my underdogs to win outright. It doesn't always happen. Like last week, we had Cincinnati, but they got beat by 1 point on a late second KC field goal. Um, but yeah, NFL favoritism towards the Chiefs. Taylor Swift still bringing in revenue. Um,
So
But
even though you're giving out your picks with the line and telling everybody, take the points, you also wouldn't discourage them from taking your underdog straight up on a money line to win.
well, at some point during the season, that's going to end up costing you. Like I said, the week before it would have cost you on the Cincinnati game. Uh, even money games, let's just take it that way. That's where I know that I can give you a lot more wins than losses, and that's what I did.
So
Um,
in this Broncos game, I just looked it up. So yeah, they were coming off a home loss to your Steelers. So it's the home opener. They had an absolutely horrendous performance in their home opener against the Steelers, and they bounced back going all the way to Tampa. But just comment on my methodology because I think it does kind of dovetail into your methodology.
well, yeah, I mean, people are very quick to react to what they see, and then here's this Buccaneer team that has gone out and pretty much dominated two straight games. I mean, they even threw Baker Mayfield in the MVP discussion, you know. But I know this Buccaneer team well. It's one of the teams we root for in this household. Both of my children were born in Tampa, and everybody had Baker Mayfield shirts on. But just being realistic about it, I mean, come on. Um, Tampa may be okay. They could sneak into a wild card, but are they going to run the table? Are they going to have some off games? Uh, no and yes.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the parity in the NFL that is the key to this, and why I think your methodology works, and my just kind of back a napkin methodology works as far as looking at those ups and downs of the season, because you have to remember that you're kind of going into this with relative parity. College football, you can't say there's parity.
no,
There's
because
teams that will never beat the other team in 100 chances, whereas the NFL, it's the on any given Sunday.
there's 16 teams in the NFL versus 100 plus games in NCAA that has lines on them. So you're going to have a lot more teams in college football that just fall outside the parameters. They're going to suck, and it doesn't matter how many points you put on this, whether it's 50 points, and you'll see a lot of 50-point spreads in these college games. Uh, no, they're not built close enough together to warrant this parity that we talk about. Whereas in the NFL with 16 teams, yeah, I mean,
16
they're all
games.
trying to win. They're getting paid huge amounts of money to go out there and do their job. And so that's why the system works much better in pro football than it does in college football.
Right. So let's talk about the next game, which kind of played into the prior week, because we had talked about this last week about how I just couldn't take the Falcons against the Eagles at Philadelphia on Monday night in their opener. You said take the Falcons. I couldn't do it. Bet against them, and of course lost. So now the Eagles are trying to bounce back after the embarrassing Monday Night Football loss against the New Orleans Saints, that are coming out of a blowout of Dallas in Dallas, right? So again, fits perfectly into my methodology and essentially your methodology, because people are overreacting to the Saints win against Dallas, overreacting to the Eagles loss. Um, Philly came in as a 3-point underdog and beat the Saints.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that game is when the initial line was put up on that game, it was Philly -3, which to me made more sense. I mean, I understand that the Saints have averaged 40 plus points a game through their first two games. And Philly does everything they can to shoot themselves in the foot. They no longer have the guaranteed tush push, which was one of their attributes, through the past X amount of years. But since Jason Kelsey is no longer part of that team, but let's not forget that Philly is still one of the NFC's elite teams, and even though they may turn the ball over on fourth down a couple times, they still boast a great defense, and they do have just enough offensive weapons to beat teams. And what was this game? 3-0 at the half. I felt great about the fact that it was only 3-0 at the half.
All right. And then the third and most important game is your nemesis, the Carolina Panthers. In the first 2 weeks, but for the Panthers, you were 4-0, but you gave out the Panthers as a pick. Much to your embarrassment, they got smoked both times. I gave you shit about it. I said, please, Rich, don't tell me that you're ever going to pick the Panthers again. I said, look, there's some teams that might just be so bad that no matter what your algorithms say, they're just a horrendous team, and they may go 0-17 this year. And you basically said, Jim, if the algorithm shows it, I'm going to give out the pick. And sure enough, there on Rich's card was the Carolina Panthers for the third straight week. And this time they finally came through for you. So I gave you grief about it. I know that you have a lot of whale customers in Vegas who pay you a lot of money for their picks. And you're saying that they also gave you a lot of grief about going with the Panthers a third time.
Yes, they did. And I muscled up on them. I said, you are going to play the Panthers. And if you choose not to, you might as well write it down as a play, because I'm charging you for it, because they are going to cover this game. And it's, I did that. But, every single one of them, after me saying that, did go out and bet the Panthers for the normal amount of money. So,
Well, that takes some onions, my friend, to stick with the Panthers for the third straight time. Now, I have to say, again, had I not been in Vegas and not been at a pool party, I would have looked this one up. And if I'd thought about it, I may have actually been willing to bet the Panthers because it was lining up with my little methodology, because the Raiders were coming off this shocking, surprising East Coast win against Baltimore, a comeback win against Baltimore. So
don't let Todd hear. Don't let Todd hear.
Yeah. His horrible Raven, who are, by the way, what are they? 1-2. Todd's team is 1-2 now. Todd, you can come on anytime to explain that. But anyway, they shocked the Ravens on the East Coast, and so they're due for a letdown. And of course, the Panthers are coming off 2 horrendous games, and they make one very important adjustment. They changed the quarterback.
Yeah, I think it was time for the Panthers to make a move. I know Bryce Young was all that in a bag of chips, #1 overall pick. Carolina traded up in the draft to get him. My problem with Bryce Young was I did not think he was the best quarterback in a draft. I thought he was too small. And the difference between college football and pro football is that you have to be able to not only see over these linemen, but throw over these linemen. And that seems to be his biggest nemesis, is being able to get the ball over the linemen. Andy Dalton has shown that he can do the job, no matter where he was, Cincinnati, New Orleans. He can play good games. Now, when we talk about the Raiders are jammed down my freaking throat because I live here in Vegas. And as much as they want to think that this Raider team is good and going to challenge for a playoff spot, they're not. They have a decent defense, but offensively, they are struggling. I mean, they have no uh, good quarterback. I mean, Gordon Minshew versus Aiden O'Connell. I mean, what kind of choice is that? They gave up Josh Jacobs because they didn't want to pay him. Uh, they do have Devontae Adams, and if Devontae Adams can get the ball, he can make plays. But that's the whole problem: getting the ball to him. They do have this rookie tight end that they're expecting big things of, but there's just not enough happening for them offensively to be a contender.
Well, last we'll talk about is the Monday night games. Did you get to watch those at least?
I briefly watched the Bills game between family arguments and how horrible of a person I am. But um, I watched. I put on the Bill game right before the half and see they were absolutely dominating that game. And I said, well, there's no sense to watch any more of this game. The Bills are going to crush them.
Yeah.
Um,
What was interesting, we also had the Commanders and the Bengals game, and it's probably the most shocking result of the weekend is that
well, yeah,
Washington was able to.
I caught that game like right at the end and seen that the Bengals had gotten beat, which put them to 0-3. I say they should be 1-2 because I think they got screwed in that KC game. But I still think that Cincinnati will be a force to be reckoned with. I know if you look at trends, odds, statistics, a team starting 0-3, their chances of making the playoffs slim to none. But I still think Cincinnati has a chance to get themselves
Yeah, I
back.
think they've started 0-2 for like 4 or 5 straight years now, and always ended up fine. I don't know about 0-3. This is probably the first time they've done that. Uh, Clearly, it's their defense seems to be the problem. They give up 38 points to Washington. So yeah, that one was a shocker,
And you
and
want to talk
cost me.
about like good first round draft picks. Jaden Daniels from LSU, he's a gamer. He's a gamer. This guy can play, and he's showing that he's growing into his position, and he can get the job done.
I'm still trying to figure out whether I like these 2 Monday night games or not. I don't know how many weeks they're going to do this for. Apparently, they're going to do it again next week. I love Red Zone. Red Zone is my favorite of all things to watch Red Zone, to track all the games at the same time. If they did a Red Zone for me on Monday night, said jump back and forth between the 2 games, I'd be happy. But otherwise, it's a little odd on Monday nights to have 2 games going almost at the same time. They stagger them by like
Well, that's the
45 minutes.
thing. When they used to do two Monday night games, they would do an early game and a late game, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. Now there's such a lack of viewership on linear TV that they'll show one of these games on Channel 13, one on ESPN, which the same network, both Disney owned, and they don't even care that they're showing two games because they know they're going to collect 80-85% of the TV market.
Yeah, well, there's something that's not quite making sense about it. You're right. It's the same network. It's ABC and ESPN. Why not do them back to back? Why they double them up? I don't know. There's got to be some strategy behind it, but I haven't quite figured it out.
Well, I mean,
Why wouldn't you go? Why wouldn't you just go back to back?
you also have the it's I call it the East Coast issue where if you start a game at 5:15 on the East Coast, which is what they're doing, and then you start a game at 7:30 or later on the East Coast, that a lot of people on a Monday night just can't stay up that late.
Yeah. Well, I
So
think that,
they find it, I guess, within their numbers, they find it easier to start them an hour apart, kind of like they do with the NCAA tournament games where they just stagger them. So you can kind of switch back and forth between them.
yeah. All right, Rich. Well, I think that wraps up the weekend. I got people calling me, and I got my dog barking, and I got people buzzing at the front door. So that must mean it's the time to wrap up the show. That's their way of saying wrap it up, wrap it up. Incredible work, my friend. Incredible work. When we first launched on this, I never would have guessed we'd be at this point, which is 7-2 so far on the season. You'll be releasing your 3 picks for this upcoming week again on Friday. Sometime on Friday, maybe Saturday. But in order to get Rich's picks, you got to go to Handicap Hustle on Substack. Hopefully producer Todd is going to put a link somewhere to make it nice and easy for you in YouTube. But if there's no link, just go to Handicap Hustle on Substack. You can subscribe for free to get our newsletter. You can also pay a mere $79 and get these 3 picks from Richard Frazier, and he's on a hot streak. I suggest that you jump on it right now. I think I may start betting the games too, actually, for the first time. I might start following you.
Jim,
You may have finally convinced me.
If I had my way, I would turn you and our producer Todd into professional gamblers. Quit looking outside for ways to get ROI. I'm your man. I'm your man. So if I can't convince you guys to do it, how are we going to convince you viewers to do it?
Let's see if Todd's in, I'm in. How about that? I'm gonna withdraw all my money from Charles Schwab, and I'm gonna bring it to Vegas, and start investing in phrase wins. That's what you're telling me?
That's what I'm telling you.
All right.
I'm the best bet out there.
All right, everybody. Thanks to Richard Frazier once again for being man enough to step up and go over his prior picks, 7-2 so far. Check out Handicap Hustle. I knew I was going to say Hollywood Hustle at some point. Handicap Hustle on Substack, and keep watching Handicap Hustle here on the CrossCheck Media Network. I'm Jim Breslow. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. And if you ever get my screenplay written, then we can call it Hollywood Hustle.